Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to my cozy corner of the internet. This is Nephilim VA bringing you the 14th chapter of You Either Die a Villain or See Yourself Become a Hero, written by FantasyFreak_2 on AO3. Villain AUs are my beloved, so we must heed the trigger warnings before we proceed. This fanfiction is for mature audiences with canon-typical violence and a trigger warning for abuse, suicide, murder, bullying, and discrimination. If that isn't your style, then I recommend Shades of Green, which is written by Maybe It's Friendly on AO3. It can be found on my channel! Canon Divergence is the name of the game, with this tale of Class 1A being a class specifically for rehabilitating villains in the making. With that being said, the chapter summary is as followed. Shigaraki tries to get the villain class to join his side by using the terrible way the world has treated the members of 1A. If the world you live in is so terrible, is it really wrong to join the side that is trying to change that? Now I implore you to sit back and relax whilst I read to you. Chapter 14. Come to the Dark Side. Members of the villain class, I am your way to salvation, Shigaraki said. He was facing Izuku and his classmates, with the Nomu that still had Aizawa in a grip at his throat next to him. Behind 1A, Kurogiri was blocking the exit. You were rejected by society and thrown away, Shigaraki continued. They didn't understand your troubles, hated your quirksore. He looked directly at Izuku. Lack thereof. Izuku started sweating. He knew. Shigaraki knew he was quirkless. Unfortunately, he didn't even have to ask himself why. Reporters got access to a short summary of the crimes of any member of the new villain class to warn the public. And the gossip papers would have loved the story of a quirkless member of 1A probably talking all about how he didn't deserve the second chance. It made Izuku's blood boil. They threw you out just to then throw you a few breadcrumbs and give you a chance. The disdain in Shigaraki's voice made clear what he thought of that. Putting you in a program where 90% of the participants will fail out and go back to prison not because they were too evil or incompetent, but because everything is stacked against them. Hating you forever even if you manage to finish your schooling for something you were pushed into by the very society that hates you for it. You'll never be free of unfair hatred as long as you stay in the system that yearns to destroy you. Izuku couldn't help but agree with him. He knew Shigaraki was right in some of the things he said. Izuku had been born as something disregarded by society. He never had been given a real chance, and he would never get one. No matter how much harder he worked as everyone else, he would always be second class. Why did he even want to become a hero for people that hated him? Shut up! Karchan shouted next to him. Small explosions were littering his arm. Just shut up! Karchan always had been better than Izuku in not letting any of his goals out of his sight. Karchan never wavered in what he wanted. He never gave up. He always had been better at that than Izuku, just as he was better in everything else. Shigaraki started laughing in a way that would haunt Izuku's dreams. It seemed devoid of every humor, and he looked at Karchan as if he could see in his soul. Oh boy, with the mighty explosion quirk, of course you would disagree. Every news network, as well as your parents and teachers, seem to agree how much you were made to be a hero. That you going to 1A was just a minor hiccup. I'm sure they can't wait for you to become the next number one and start beating other people to the ground just for being born wrong. You seem predetermined for it, seeing as you can't even do it to your own childhood friend. Izuku heard a choked-up sound from Karchan that could have been a sob. His friend staggered backwards as if he'd been hit, and Izuku lost his view of him since he wouldn't take his eyes off of Shigaraki. Karchan, his unwavering friend, had fallen in his belief. Maybe Shigaraki was right. If even Karchan couldn't defend becoming a hero anymore, maybe it was undefendable. Let him go! Izuku's thoughts were interrupted by Denki shouting. Izuku actually turned around to stare at him in confusion. Who was he talking about? Shigaraki hadn't even touched Karchan. Denki had stood rather back in a small circle they had formed, but now he fought his way to the front with tears in his eyes, but a determined look in his face. I don't care. I don't care what the hell you want to philosophize over society and being hated. I don't fucking care. You are hurting the only person that ever helped me unconditionally, that accepted me. Denki turned around to face his class. How can you even listen to him while he's hurting the very people that we were ready to risk everything for us? That believed in us. He pointed at Aizawa, who was slowly turning blue in Nomu's grip. Kaminari. Aizawa managed to get out. His eyes, dulled in pain, still seemed to have a small spark of pride in them. Izuku felt as if someone had punched him. He had been enraptured by Shigaraki's pretty words, while both of his teachers became closer to death every second. How could he have even thought about changing sides while Aizawa was still fighting for him? Aizawa, who had fought his entire life, who had been just as disregarded by society as Izuku, but never given up until he managed to get a position to help others in the same position as himself, who had believed in them. Shigaraki seemed angered by Denki's exclamation. He is nothing better than a prison guard keeping you away from your true potential. He is helping people like us who are thrown away by society, Denki answered. He is the way to salvation, not you. Shigaraki slowly walked up to Denki, who swallowed nervously but didn't back off. He is the way to make you part of the problem. No. This time Shinso spoke. You change society from the inside out, not by burning it down. Eraserhead has been my beacon of hope long before I even got into UA, and you're trying to take him away. Shigaraki didn't respond, but considering that the news probably reported about Shinso's villain quirk, that wasn't much of a surprise. Denki's voice shook as Shigaraki loomed over him, but he still sounded full of determination. Let Mr. Aizawa go. Since you seem so eager to join the heroes, I'll give you the same fate that will hit them too. Shigaraki stretched out his hand to Denki, who had nowhere to run and stood there frozen in fear. No! Izuku shouted, already seeing Denki disintegrate in front of his eyes. Shigaraki's hand landed on his head and nothing happened. A smile appeared on Shigaraki's face and he slowly turned around to Eraser, who was staring at him with red, shining eyes. You are really so cool, Eraserhead. The Nomu who had held him up threw Aizawa face first into the ground and used his other hand to rub his head into the stone to make sure he couldn't use his eyes again. After the deafening crack that had followed the action, Izuku didn't believe he was even conscious anymore. No. Denki had stumbled away from Shigaraki and stared in horror at the mangled body of his teacher. Shigaraki just laughed. No one is coming and you are 21 little kids faced by dozens of villains. Are you sure you don't want to change your mind? Look out! Ida shouted from behind them, and as Izuku turned, he saw the black smoke of Kurogiri coming towards them. He's a teleporter! Izuku shouted. Everyone lock arms together! He managed to hook his arms around Uraraka's and Sato's arms next to him, but also used his hand to feel around his belt for one of his guns. After he got a grip on it, he tried his best version of a stage whisper that only his class could hear, but didn't know if he had succeeded. Everyone, eyes closed and fingers in ears! He felt Uraraka and Sato raise their arms, still hooked together with his. to put their fingers in their ears, but Izuku himself could only plug his left ear while raising the stun gun with his right hand and firing it off. 2 seconds later, it was silent. Then there was a dazzling light in front of Izuku's eyes and a deafening boom. Izuku's ears were ringing, especially the right one. It hurt his head, and after Uraraka and Sato let go of him, he stumbled to his knees. There was nothing but ringing, and his eyes had started tearing up. Something was shaking his shoulders. Izuku? It was Uraraka who was shaking his shoulder. Izuku, stand up! You have to stand up! Izuku opened his eyes and had to blink several times to get the tears out of them. As he looked around him, he saw the black smoke form of Kurogiri floating above them, apparently having been disoriented by the blast of the stun gun. Shigaraki had fallen to his knees next to him with his head to his ears, and even the Nomu had let go of Aizawa and was stumbling around a bit confused, but it seemed to recover fast. His class seemed to have managed to get their eyes and ears covered fast enough that the blast of the stun gun had been close enough to slightly disorient them too. Ida! Izuku managed to croak out. Ida, this is your chance. Get help. Run! Ida blinked in confusion a second, then his eyes lit up in realization as he looked at the still floating Kurogiri, and he turned around to run to the exit. He needed a few seconds to force it open and vanished from sight. Thank you so much for watching this video. I appreciate all the support you've given me. I love the fact that Denki was the one to stand up to Shigaraki and Izuku was given a snipe moment. An awesome chapter all around. All credits go to the original creator of this fanfiction, FantasyFreak_2 on AO3. I would highly appreciate it if you gave this video a like and you subscribe to the channel and you hit the notification bell to be notified of when I next upload. There is no pressure to do so though. Thank you for visiting my cozy corner of the internet. Keep growing my sunflowers. Mwah.